Hey everyone, and welcome back. Have you ever had one of those moments? A tiny, seemingly insignificant accident that ends up changing everything? A dropped phone, a wrong turn, a message seen by mistake. For Mark, one such accident didn't just change his day. It shattered his world and then, unexpectedly, rebuilt it into something he never imagined. Mark and Sarah had what everyone called the perfect marriage. High school sweethearts. They'd built a beautiful life together over 15 years. They had a cozy house in the suburbs, two wonderful kids, and a rhythm to their lives that felt comfortable and secure. Mark, a dedicated architect, worked hard to provide for his family, believing he was building a fortress of happiness and stability. He trusted Sarah completely. Why wouldn't he? She was his rock, his confidant, the other half of his soul. But sometimes, the foundations we believe are solid rock are actually resting on sand. The day it all fell apart started like any other Tuesday. It was a chaotic morning of packing lunches, finding lost shoes, and ushering the kids out the door for school. Sarah had a dentist appointment, so Mark was on drop-off duty. As he was about to leave, Sarah called out, "Honey, can you grab my phone from the charger? I left it upstairs." Mark jogged up, unplugged the phone, and as his thumb brushed the screen, it lit up. And there it was. A notification. A single line of text from a name he didn't recognize. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you." Mark's heart stopped. For a second, his mind refused to process what he was seeing. It had to be a mistake, a wrong number, a prank. He handed the phone to Sarah, his hand trembling slightly, and managed a tight smile. "Here you go," he said, his voice sounding distant to his own ears. He drove the kids to school in a complete daze, the children's chatter in the back seat fading into a muffled hum. The words from the screen were burned into his mind, playing on a loop. Last night was amazing. But last night Sarah had told him she was at a book club meeting. The workday was a blur. Mark sat at his desk, staring at blueprints, but all he could see were those words. Doubt, a seed he never thought would find soil in his marriage, began to sprout, its thorny vines wrapping around his heart. He tried to reason with himself. Maybe it was an innocent message. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. But the raw intimacy of the words gnawed at him. That evening, he watched Sarah as she moved around the kitchen, preparing dinner, laughing with the kids. She looked the same, but to Mark, everything was different. It felt like watching a stranger wear his wife's face. That night, after the kids were asleep, Mark knew he couldn't live with the uncertainty. He'd never invaded her privacy before. The thought itself felt like a betrayal. But the alternative, the suffocating poison of suspicion, was worse. With his heart pounding against his ribs, he waited until she was asleep and gently picked up her phone. His hands were slick with sweat as he navigated to her messages. And there it was. Not just one message, but months of them. A whole secret life laid bare on the glowing screen. The messages were a gut-wrenching chronicle of an affair with a man from her gym. They detailed secret meetings, shared intimacies, and plans for a future that didn't include Mark. He read about how she felt alive and seen in a way she hadn't in years. Each word was a physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. The life he had cherished, the family he had worked so hard for, the woman he adored. It all felt like a lie. He sat there in the dark, the phone's light illuminating the tears streaming down his face, his perfect world collapsing into rubble around him. The confrontation was quiet, devastating. The next morning, Mark placed the phone on the kitchen table between them. He didn't have to say a word. The look in his eyes said it all. Sarah's face crumpled, and the truth, in all its ugly detail, spilled out. She cried, she apologized, she made excuses about feeling neglected and lonely. But her words were just noise to Mark. The trust, the very bedrock of their relationship, was gone. He felt a profound, aching emptiness. It wasn't just anger. It was grief. He was mourning the death of the life he thought he had. The weeks that followed were a living nightmare. They tried counseling, but the sessions felt hollow. Mark couldn't look at Sarah without seeing the betrayal. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison filled with ghosts of happy memories that were now tainted. He was going through the motions, a ghost in his own life. He lost weight. He couldn't sleep, and his work suffered. He hit rock bottom, consumed by a bitterness that was eating him alive. He realized that staying together wasn't saving his family. It was teaching his children that love could look this broken and sad. With a heavy heart, Mark made the hardest decision of his life. He filed for divorce. The process was painful, but it was also the first step toward reclaiming himself. He moved into a small apartment, and the initial silence was deafening. He was alone, truly alone, for the first time in his adult life. The loneliness was a physical ache. But in that silence, something unexpected happened. He started to hear his own voice again. He had spent so long being Mark, Sarah's husband, Mark, the dad, that he'd forgotten who Mark, the man, was. He started small. He picked up his old guitar, an instrument he hadn't touched in years. The first chords were clumsy, but with each strum, a piece of the old hymn returned. He started hiking on the weekends, finding a sense of peace in nature that he hadn't felt in a long time. He reconnected with old friends he'd drifted away from. He wasn't just filling time. He was rediscovering his passions, his interests, himself. He started journaling, pouring out his anger, his sadness, his confusion onto the page. And slowly, through this process, he began to heal. One of the most profound changes was in his relationship with his kids. Without the constant tension at home, their time together became more focused, more genuine. They weren't just parents managing a household. He was their dad, present and engaged. They cooked together, built elaborate Lego castles, and had deep conversations. He was a better father, a more patient and attentive one than he'd ever been. He realized that the accident, that one text message, hadn't just ended his marriage. It had forced him to start a new, more authentic life. Mark's journey wasn't about finding someone new to fill the void. It was about learning to be whole on his own. He learned that his happiness didn't depend on someone else's validation. He found strength in his solitude and a newfound confidence in his ability to navigate life on his own terms. The man who emerged from the ashes of his marriage was stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. That accidental glimpse at a phone screen was devastating, yes, but it was also a wake-up call. It was the catalyst that pushed him out of a comfortable lie and onto a path of genuine self-discovery, and ultimately, a more profound and fulfilling happiness. Mark's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes our greatest breakdowns lead to our most significant breakthroughs. If you've ever faced a situation that felt like the end of the world, remember that it might just be the beginning of a new one. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this time with me. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content. I'll see you in the next video.